we're going to watch later. Thanks for joining another RefWell session. I'm Sony from the RefMasters team, and today's topic is a really, really good one. We talk about it a lot in our individual sport sessions, but not with the lens and at the level that we're going to do today. Today, we're talking about strengthening crew communication and dynamics. So without further pause, I'll pass it to head of our RefWell program, our host for this evening, Lauren Holtkamp Sterling. Lauren, it's all yours.
Thanks so much, Sony. Welcome, everyone. Man, I'm really happy to see you all here tonight. Some with really impressive microphones and others on headsets like myself. Before we get rolling, I do want to say this up front. Tonight's topic is big. All right, so we're talking about crew connection and communication, and it touches so many parts of our work. We put out some polls into the RefWell space, and people have a lot to say about this. It's experience that cuts across sport for us, and it cuts across experience level as officials. So my plan is to introduce the most important pieces tonight, but if we get into it, and it feels like this would serve us better as a 2 or even 3-part series, then we can absolutely do that. And there's no pressure for us to rush tonight. So RefWell is designed to meet you where you are, and if breaking this into smaller sessions will help you apply it in real games, then we'll go that route. Okay, so think of tonight as a start, and then we'll follow the energy and the needs of the group as we go. I'm gonna open up our conversation by calling out something that you felt just about every game you've ever worked, and that is that every single crew has a vibe. Like you know it as soon as you walk into the locker room together. Before we make any decisions together as a crew, before anybody has their first whistle, that vibe, so much of what shapes that vibe isn't the words that we say to each other. It's the ways that we communicate without even realizing it. So that's part of what we're going to talk about tonight. Glances, tones, pacing, the way that we respond to one another before we take the floor or the field, all of this creates patterns for us as a crew. And then those patterns show up when we're in the game in pressure situations. So what I want to do, we're going to examine those patterns outside of the pressure situations. We're going to examine them in a locker room together, okay? And knowing that those patterns then will follow us onto the field or the floor. We want to increase awareness of your individual communication style under pressure. So how do you communicate when your own stress shows up? And not in isolation, not when you're stressed by yourself, but inside a crew system. And that crew system is constantly trying to find stability. So some of the ways that we're talking about crew dynamics together tonight are going to be, I think you're going to feel them instinctually, but maybe you haven't had language for it before, or maybe just not an opportunity to talk about it in this way. But you know a lot of this stuff instinctually. So it's about bringing it to a level of awareness so that we can build skills together to co-regulate and find steadiness as a crew. Okay, last thing before we dive into it. I don't want this to feel like a lecture. I really intend for this to feel like a chance to pause and breathe and reflect together. So it's going to take some interaction, and Sony and I are going to, Sony is so good. We partner together well in that way to make sure that we're making space for you guys to interact. And so I really appreciate his partnership there. And I do want us to connect, though, together as officials who know what it's like to do hard things in real time and under real scrutiny with real people depending on us. Okay, so I'm inviting you to settle in, take a breath if you need one, and let's explore how we strengthen the crew and our communication that carry us through the toughest stretches of our work. And Sony, I'm going to ask now, actually, we're going to start with some voices from the field or the court together. And if you can run us through some of the responses that people, what we saw in our poll that we had in RefWell.
Yeah, for sure. Did you have a particular poll? I know we talked about this before.
It's okay.
I'm going to pull it up. I'll pull one up. We had one here on what if we learn that make communication for a crew work well? I think that could be a really good place to start. This was an open question that you had for the group. And of course, if others have, you got a lot of feedback on this one, but if others have thoughts here as well, I think this was a really good question that you posed a few days ago on the Ref Masters platform.
Mm-hmm. So something that we want to, it's really easy, I think, for people to focus on what doesn't work. But we can find a lot of direction for growth and leaning into what does work and doing more of that. So that was part of behind this question, what does make communication work as a crew?
Interested to hear from the group on this. I see one name here, Malachi. He's co-heads our baseball program and an MLB umpire. He's here on the call tonight. Malachi, maybe you could elaborate a little bit more just from your experience here, because you talked when you responded to Lauren's question, you talked about honesty and transparency, and that sounds great, right? Like we all talk about honesty and transparency, but actually achieving that in challenging spots with people that you have varying levels of and varying levels, probably a lot harder than it sounds. Malachi, if you're able to, would love to just get your thoughts on how you've been able to do that, or what some of the challenges have been in your career.
Yeah, most definitely. Honesty has been something that for me, I gravitate to. I can tell and you can feel when someone's being truthful and honest with you. Like, hey man, your read on that fly ball, it just wasn't good. All right. So take a deep breath and we'll do this and do that. Opposed to someone, maybe that response, someone saying like, hey, I guess it was an okay read. It was like, no, me and you both know that read was terrible. I need to hear it in a way that's stern, that's firm, and that's going to get my attention to go, okay, perfect. That'll never happen again. Just being honest with individuals like from the AAA level that I work with. Not everyone's going to get hired. Not everyone's going to be a major league umpire. But when you try to separate yourself from the pack, being honest with those individuals, I know they show appreciation for it because they're like, man, thank you for saying that, man, because no one's really told me that, or no one's really told me that in that way. And so I know a lot of times for me, it definitely stands out when people are honest and transparent, and there's no BSing. It is what it is. This is what we're doing. Or hey, you're expected to do better. So I respond to that.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really good. Oh, go ahead, Lauren.
Oh, I was just wondering if that resonates for other people in here right now. That idea of some would call it maybe tough love, but just real straight shooting, clear feedback that is honest and probably not unkind, right? You're just calling it like you see it. Does that resonate for other people around something that helps crew communication?
Tiffany.
Hi, yeah, I like to use the science teacher in me likes to use cause and effect. And so in my sport, we kind of have handoffs, and there's this journey of players across the court, right? Which is between our zones. And so I like to use honesty in what I'm seeing. And I will probably communicate a little bit more of what I'm seeing as a handoff so that we stay consistent from end to end. And so sometimes instead of me saying something like, oh no, you got that all wrong, 100% I will do it if it needs to be done. But a lot of the times if I reflect a little bit more on my scenarios that I'm handing off, it'll give him or her a better indicator of what they're about to see. So then they have this preview of information coming in And that type of communication cause and effect also like post game. If we talk about things like how does getting this particular type of sequence incorrect impact the player's ability and what they're showcasing, how we're presenting this game as a whole. I think sometimes that is also beneficial. So there's like multiple ways to kind of communicate with honesty for sure.
One of the things that I hear in that, Tiffany, that I think is, I'm going to make a note of this because I think this is really, really useful, is to think about communication. If you're giving feedback or communicating with the crew, not as a statement with a period at the end of it, but a statement with like a semicolon or a comma, which invites, like, it's the beginning. It's a handoff. When you talk about the handoff, that's what I hear in that, right? I'm offering a perspective, some feedback or a thought here, and there's room on the back end of it for others to come in, and I'm handing that off, and then let's see where it goes. I'm kind of taking it real specific, I think, from water polo to like a generalized thing, but I think that is a really useful model there. Does other people, if there's, I don't know if other people have want to share what works around crew communication for them?
I saw Shaquille or Shaquille. I apologize. I'm working on the name there, but I saw you had your hand up as well. If you'd like to share. I see you just went off mute, but I'm not hearing anything. All right, maybe we're not going to be able to hear from them yet, but maybe we can come back later. Let's see if we can get the audio going. All right. Yeah, Lauren, maybe we should move forward and we can always come back.
Yeah, of course. Okay, well, in the spirit of what Tiffany and Malachi shared with us, part of being able to offer and receive clear feedback is about, now, again, I think instinctually you're going to know what I'm going to say, but maybe this is different language around it, but is about sort of grounding yourself so that you can give clear feedback or thought and receive it back. So we're always going to model that here in RefWell together. So we're going to spend a few minutes doing a somatic awareness. We're always going to integrate this in together because it's a practical way for you to take the experiences that you have here together into the locker room and into your sports specific space. So, okay, crew, we're all a crew together tonight. Before we get into the specifics of our work, let's take a moment to settle together. So I'm going to invite you to find your feet and go ahead and place both feet flat on the floor. You can feel the contact point. So heel, ball of your foot, toes of your foot. And let your legs be supported by the chair. Let the chair hold you. Slowly bring your attention inward. Notice your shoulders, your jaw, your hands. There's no need to change anything. Just notice what's here. Now take a slow breath in through your nose and let a longer breath out through your mouth. In through your nose and a longer breath out. Let your attention move to the rise and fall of your breath. So let it be easy, don't force it. You're just noticing the natural rhythm that's already there for you. All right, without judging it, notice your body's readiness right now. Do you feel calm? Maybe a little keyed up? Somewhere in between? Whatever you notice is totally okay. It's just information. It's not a performance. It's just information. Our bodies often tell us things about our communication long before our minds catch up. So as you sit here and you feel your feet on the floor, you feel your breath, ask yourself, how does my body let me know when crew communication is off? What does it feel like in your body when you're with a crew? Maybe in the locker room or in the middle of a game. But how does your body let you know that communication is off? It might be tight shoulders. It could be like sweaty palms or shallow breath, a hot face, clenching your jaw. Maybe you check out. You can take a moment to notice that privately, or you can put your answer in the chat. There's no pressure either way. Okay, take one more slow breath and let's come back together. What you just felt, so whether you felt calm or you felt keyed up or somewhere in the middle, it's the same information that shows up for you on the field or on the court or on a pool deck, I guess, as a polo referee. And here's the thing. So every group of officials creates a certain atmosphere among themselves. And whatever each of us brings in can shift that atmosphere around. So we don't experience what you just experienced internally. You don't experience that in isolation. You experience this inside a crew. So in this next section, we're going to zoom out and look at crews through a systemic lens. And we're going to think about how we are a system together as a crew. So we're not just a bunch of individuals that come together to work a game and then leave or work a match. We're actually a connected group. And that within our connected group, we have roles and hierarchies that determine our behavior together. We have unspoken rules. We have habits that repeat under pressure that we may or may not be aware of. And we've got little feedback loops that ripple through the whole crew and impact how everyone's able to show up and communicate and connect with one another. So when you think about patterns within your crew, you'll probably, when you start paying attention to them, they'll become easy to recognize. Because crews, like families, tend to organize themselves in familiar ways when stress shows up. So when one person comes in and brings an atmosphere of tension or irritation or dismissiveness or confidence, the entire system shifts. Okay, so I want to bring this to life. We're not just going to talk about this in like this floaty nether region up here. I want to walk us through a couple of real world scenarios from inside the locker room. And this is where we are going to touch on different sports. Okay, so I'm getting outside my comfort zone a little bit, but as you listen, I want you to notice how quickly a crew can drift out of sync together. And then pay attention also to how a small shift in communication can bring everyone back together. All right, so we're going to start with baseball. I don't know. Sony, do you think we should have a member read, or do you want to read? I'm going to take a break for a
I'll
second.
summarize briefly just to give you a little break here.
Thanks.
And we want to hear from the group on this. Of course, you can put A, B, or C in the chat, but also want to hear your thoughts on this as well, because I think there's maybe more than one way to think about it. It's not necessarily obvious to me exactly what the best way is. But this first scenario, right? Pre-game, in the locker room, crew chief, veteran umpire are still irritated about a sticky interference ruling from the last night's game. They're trading shorthand comments like, "We're not getting burned on that again." The umpires newer to the crew suddenly feel squeezed between the two veterans. The emotional field tightens. The implicit rule becomes, "Don't challenge the crew chief." So the rookie starts nodding a lot and saying very little. So here are three options, A, B, or C. A, saying something like this: "Feels like we're carrying some heat from last night. Before we walk out, what's one crew focus we want to hold out? We want to hold to today?" That's option A. Option B, say nothing. Trust the tension will disappear once the first pitch is thrown. And C, ask the newer umpire, "Anything from yesterday's tape you think we should keep an eye on?" So all three have, I think, I've seen all three. Maybe not, I don't work as an official, but I've seen these in other workplace contexts, right? So I've seen all three of these. I'm sure you are as well. So group, what do we think here?
Call me about tomorrow.
Robert, I think you're off mute there, sir. So group, what do we think? A, B, or C?
So Nate says A, staying positive. I actually lost the...
Nate, interested in your thoughts there. What, can you elaborate a little bit more on A? I think that's a fine answer. I'm just interested to hear your reasoning a little bit more.
So as officials, if we keep on looking back at like missed calls that we had in the past, like it's gonna affect you so much in your next game, right? We're humans, we're all gonna make mistakes, we're all gonna miss calls. So if we stay positive and think about our next game and learn from our past missed calls or that didn't meet the criteria for that penalty or whatever sport it is, to think ahead of that next game and like, okay, I messed that call up, but how can I work on that to make myself a better official for the upcoming games?
Totally follow you. Lauren, I know you may have some thoughts there, but I've got to follow up whether for Nate or for the rest of the group. Because it's interesting when you said kind of the positive part and being more forward looking. Is there any downside to A? Like what could go wrong with A? Because I definitely could see how it can go right too, but I'm just interested in our thoughts there as a group. Like what could go wrong with A? Cademan, what's your thoughts?
Honestly, as Nate was kind of talking, I was like, what would I do? I would want to do A. I like the thought of C, but what would probably happening? Because as a baseball official in high school, I work with a different guy every night. And so you don't really get the connections. They do in football here in Missouri. Football's saying 5 or 6 guys every night. I don't really know how those work. But in baseball, it's a new guy every night. I mean, it's really hard to build those connections like this. So, like I said, A would be the right answer. C would be a good answer, but B is probably what would end up happening. because you see them twice a month. And so, like when you say nothing, trust the tension would disappear. Once the first pitch is thrown, again, it's not what you want to happen, but it's probably going to end up happening as you only see the same guys, like I said, twice a month, maybe.
Mhm.
I love that perspective. I guess the follow up I have is like, couldn't like the part at the beginning where it's like feels like we're carrying some heat from last night, like could that be seen as kind of confrontational? Which I also I
Mhm.
love me some confrontation here or there, but I wonder if like that's kind of the question I have. Like that's the thing for me that would probably keep me from saying like maybe I don't want to be confrontational. I don't know.
I'm going to chime in here because I think, Cademan, like you, man, I've been a rookie a lot of times. Like, and I've worked so many different levels, and I always started out as a rookie at every level I've worked at, right? So a lot of experience being the beginner, and the less experienced official. And so early on in my career, I would want to probably say nothing, feel the tension, like I'm stuck between these officials who have so much more experience, and I'm just hoping that it just works itself out. But Sony, to your question, if it feels confrontational, actually, does it? That is an interesting perspective to think that naming the climate that we're experiencing with people neutrally. Hey, it feels like we're carrying some heat from last night. Before we walk out, what do we want to focus on today? And I know it's in tone. This is where some of this stuff, when we're talking about tone and eye contact, and that's that intangible part of connection. But I think it's interesting to think that we would feel that it's challenging people to just name what the climate is right now between us. Man, things feel tense right now. How does that land for other people? Does that feel like it would be challenging?
Really good point. Tiffany.
Yeah, I don't know. Part of me is thinking about how the brain works, and like when you name your emotion, it really calms things down, right? So it switches you into that prefrontal cortex. So I feel like kind of just getting it out there, it's like getting your elephants in the room, kind of like up in front of everybody. And if you're doing it with the right tone and you guys are there for the right reason, like we're there for the kids or the players if they're professional. So I feel like you're kind of it in this profession. There might be some egos in there, but I do feel like if you approach it the right way with the right tone, this would diffuse a lot. And it gives everybody a chance to kind of start with a fresh slate. It also allows for that transition into, all right, we are a team and we are like about to go out there. So like, does anybody want to like focus on something? Like I think it kind of does give you a lot of options. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but that's just kind of
Mhm.
like down inside what I'm thinking.
Well, I know we have a raised hand. I'll just name that, like, our climate tonight, we're a bit reserved together as a group. We're quieter tonight. Maybe our energy is a little low. Like, I think just naming that, honestly, it's okay. And then we can access choices around what we want to do with it, right? So, I think but I really appreciate your point, Tiffany, about like naming it brings awareness, and it moves us to the prefrontal cortex versus just staying in like our animal brain of just trying to survive. I'm the less experienced official squished between these two more veteran officials who are uptight about something that's happened, and we can kind of move people, introduce another thing. Roy,
Right.
you raised your hand, right? I'd love to hear what you're thinking.
Yes, I think it will be important to address the situation at the present moment, because if we have to go out a second half with that same anxiety, the chances of us screwing up the game even more is greater from the pressure in which we put on ourselves. So we can just take the air out of it,
Mhm.
address it, and say, hey, the second half, we're going to go out. We're going to be better at block charges. We're going to be better at traveling. Whatever the situation is that we think got us there, let's refocus. We know what the principles and the guidelines are for that particular play. Let's go out and knock the second half out. Let's be better than we were the first half. I think that kind of get everybody else in a positive mood and kind of put the first half behind us.
Mhm. Mhm. One of our bosses used to talk about letting some air out of the balloon a little bit, like as the pressure builds, like thinking about the pressure inside of a balloon as it's filling up, what it is to be able to let just some of that air out in a way that's not going to get in the way of the work. It's not going to, it's not going to cause friction on the crew. But I think some of that is possible here when you kind of acknowledge what the climate is for people, just with neutrality. I mean, it's not with judgment, right? It's not, I think that's the important piece here. But I'm also curious what you guys think about option C. So what is that to invite the less experienced like umpire in this way into sort of a leadership moment with the crew? What do you guys think of that option?
Hi everyone, I'm gonna hop in here. As someone who is a first year umpire trying to give my best, I'd say when I'm included by veterans or of any of my leaders, I feel like I belong. And it's something that we've touched on multiple ref university sessions where encouraging the newer officials to step up and fully commit if they got something. Like if you believe your call is 100% true with your whole ambition, even if it gets overturned, allowing the new umpire, the new ref, that space, that safe space to use their voice, I think is very important. Forgive me, I was walking my dog for the first half, so I wasn't able to chime in, but I've been loving the conversation.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're with us, and I'm glad your dog got a walk in tonight. That's good too. That is such an important perspective about what it is for leadership, right? Like this is, and I think this is part of what we're talking about as the crew as a system. It's not on one person to make the crew dynamic work. Every single person on a crew is contributing to the crew dynamic. It's just a matter of what you're contributing. So part of what we're talking about tonight is being aware of what you're contributing and having intentionality around what you're contributing, because you're bringing something to the table, right? So in this way, it's not on just the crew chief, and it's not just on the least experienced referee. Like we all have roles in this. I do want to say one other thing that happens for crews of 3 people, and this is sort of this happens in family systems or in groups with 3 people. There's triangulation that can happen. And so when there's 3 people, typically 2 people can, if there's stress, can sort of form an alliance. And the third person is kind of on an island, okay? So when that happens, it can really destroy crew chemistry. And I just want to bring it up. I don't have like a surefire solution for that right now, but I want to bring that to your awareness because I don't want you to be the person creating an alliance with a second person and squeezing out a third. All right, so there's no easy solution there. But I will say when we invite this newer umpire into shared leadership by asking for their perspective, it breaks down that triangulation system, and it creates an environment of inclusion that will carry out onto the field when people need feedback, input, participation.
That's really cool. That's
You want to
really
move?
neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think Caveman also had his hand up when Steven did as well. If you have one more thing to share,
Mhm.
I'd love to hear it.
Steven said exactly what I was thinking.
Awesome.
I'm a younger guy. It's my second year. I'll be doing my 3rd year of high school baseball next year. And yeah, just like you said, it opens it up for us younger guys, make us feel it makes us feel heard. When you're younger, not a lot of guys want to listen to you. I mean, I'm 17 and I've been calling high school baseball. It's my second year, like I said, or yeah, second year in high school baseball. And so I'm calling guys that are older than me. And with your partners, I mean, I'm working with a lot of guys who are in their late 50s through their 70s. And so it feels really nice whenever you understand that, hey, they do care what I have to say and they like my input.
Mhm.
Awesome. Want to go to the next one, Lauren?
Yeah, let's shift to basketball. All right, I'm gonna get a little I get a little more grounded here. So we're going to shift to basketball, and this same crew system is going to show up, but in a different way. Okay, so we've had a pregame scenario. Here's what it can look like when a crew hits halftime, and each official comes in with a completely different internal state from one another. Okay, so we've just refereed the same half of basketball together, or the same I don't know, like, I'm trying to think. I'm keeping it basketball. I'm not even trying to get out of my thing. We've just officiated the same half, but we come back in the locker room and we all internally, thanks for laughing, Spenny. We all internally feel very different about what's just happened out there. Okay. So Sony, go ahead and cue us up in this mid-game check-in breakdown scenario.
So we got the referee R pacing, saying this game is getting away from us. We've got to lock it down. We've got U1, we got umpire 1 sitting quietly, scrolling through rules notes, nowadays on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got umpire 2 cracking jokes to break the tension. So we've got 3 options. Option A, don't give into the emotional energy and dive straight into crew mechanics. Option B, say something like, hey, before we make adjustments, what's one thing each of us thinks is helping or hurting us to be on the same page out there as a crew? And option C, let's all take one breath together. What's one thing we can agree to focus on for the first part of the second half? What do we think, team? A, B, or C? I really like these scenarios because I've done all of them. And whether right or wrong, I've had my rationalizations for all of them, so I really like that. Steven has B.
I chose B just because in a work environment, I like to just say what's working, what's not working. I think that's a first big step, especially if a team isn't on the same page. So that's why I chose B.
Mm-hmm.
Roy, would be interested to hear from you again on this one. Which way would you go, Roy?
I like C.
Yep.
C, hey, we've all, we're thinking that it's a chippy game. So let's take a deep breath. And we talk about one thing that we can agree to focus on the first part of the second half to kind of get the game back under control so that we don't feel like it's chippy anymore. And if we can get to that point, the better us can show up for the remainder of the game. When we're more comfortable and more relaxed, we are more apt to do a better job on the floor as opposed to when we're all uptight and nervous about what we've already done. So we try to look at, hey, what can we agree on to go out here and do the first half of, whether it's, hey, it's too handsy tonight. They're playing too aggressive. The whistle's our friend tonight. Let's go out and get control of the game before we have a fight. And so I'll approach it from that standpoint. And if we can get that under control, then the rest of the game kind of takes care of itself.
Roy is very persuasive. I find Roy very persuasive.
I'm ready to go work a game with them. Come on, Roy, let's go. Grab your whistle. Let's do it.
Lauren, you probably don't remember. We worked some long time ago, Division II.
Oh, man. See, grab a whistle. Let's go.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Hey, Tiffany, what are your thoughts on this one?
This one's a good one. I mean, even the last one was really well phrased and difficult to answer, so it sparks conversation. I think this one, for me personally, depends on the crew I'm working with. So letter B, I love the sound of it, but I can already think of people where that would be opening up a can of worms. And can of worms meaning, like, I appreciate everybody's opinions and everything, but some people in certain situations, I think there's just a lot of egos sometimes. And so sometimes they're not willing to reflect and think deep into, like, oh, I might be a part of the problem, And so in some situations, like, they're not there yet to be able to have that type of open line of communication. And so I kind of meet people where they're at and feel them out. in pregame scenarios or watching them before I work with them and things like that. But yeah, I think I like the idea of C a lot. And just kind of using your breath to kind of get grounded. And, half times are pretty short in my sport. You get like about 5 minutes. So I'm not sure what half times are for everybody else. So I feel like taking that deep breath is really important. And so we use that time a lot to communicate with the table and things like that. And so I think if you have minimal time, that's probably what I would do, would be C. But there are some people where I'd be able to do B with, and it would be great.
Malachi is asking, what are half times?
That actually was when I was queuing it up, and I was like, oh, we came in at halftime. I was like, baseball was the one that really set me for a loop. I'm like, they don't even get a break. What the heck? Yeah. Do you think, this is a bit of a culture shift, truly. What would it be like to say, guys, let's take, hey, that's a tough half. Before we even make any sort of adjustment or go back out there, let's just take a breath together. Is that something that you could see doing with your crews, like realistically? Now that, we're in like our third session of RefWell and we're using breath a lot more, but as you get more comfortable with it, does that seem like something that would translate in a locker room setting or would be a little tricky?
I'm skeptical.
You are.
I'm skeptical.
Yeah. Why? Say more about that.
Again, I'm not. Y'all are going to be the ones to really kind of corroborate or to say what you can do. But in a compressed period of time, and there's already a lot of adrenaline and a lot of emotion, and things are up, I would just be very concerned about exacerbating the issue without having the time and kind of security to be able to kind of work through that. I would be concerned about making the issue worse by kind of being that head on. But I recognize if you have the right person, and Tiffany was kind of like, it depends on the crew and the situation. Like, if you got the right person that can do it, then, I'm sure, I think it would be great. I would certainly, it's like a high risk, high reward strategy. Whereas I would certainly see a lot of times like a low risk, low reward strategy where it's not going to change a lot, but you're also not going to really you just kind of just kind of leaving it to chance a little bit, but yeah, really I love your question, Laura. Interested to hear from the rest. What do you think, Cademan?
I didn't even hear the question. I'm going to be honest with you.
It's okay.
Down rain here, and so I just had to turn my volume up.
No problem.
Oh, go ahead. My bad.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, Kevin, my question was it's a bit of a culture shift to think about using breath as a explicit way to co-regulate together as a crew. And so what I mean is hey, let's just take a breath together for a second. Okay, let's focus on what do we want to do second half. It's the science behind it is you are co-regulating together. It's a very brief, quick, I would argue low risk way, but Sony thinks it's high risk. So Caveman, my question is, could you see yourself actually with the crew saying, hey, let's take a breath together before we get into what adjustments we want to make?
Absolutely. I think it puts us all back on the same page. It humbles us to a point. You go back to, you're confident again after something chippy happens, as the question or the thing says. You start overthinking everything. So I think that one breath that we all take, it puts us back on the same page, gets us all thinking the same. Let's just run the game, as they say.
Well, I'm going to share just an interest of continuing to move on or move forward together. I think ignoring the emotional energy is something that it's that's standard practice. We're not even going to touch the emotional energy of what's happening in our crew, the emotional atmosphere of what we're all bringing together. What we're going to do is focus on the mechanics. We're going to focus on the rules. And There is a time and place for that. But what we're exploring together is what it means to strengthen our communication by also strengthening our connection as a crew. And to strengthen connection as a crew, it's to make some space, not a ton, and not to take the place of mechanics or rules or the training that you have, but to add it in so that we are tending to the emotional atmosphere just a little bit so that we can get back to the work that we're trained to do. So stronger connection forges stronger communication and trust and trustworthiness is the notion here. And I would say option B, by asking what is something that each of us believes is like what's helping us out there and what's hurting us. Like, Sony, can you tell me one thing you think is helping us and hurting us? And Malachi, will you tell me one thing that you think is happening out there that's helping us and hurting us? What that does is it actually externalizes the challenges. So we're identifying that it's challenges out on the floor. It's not problems that we have with one another. It doesn't let people off the hook around responsibility, but it does externalize the issue. So instead of being like, oh man, I can't believe you really blew that call. I'll tell you what will help us is if you don't make that call again. But what we're saying is what out there is helping us and what out there is hurting us. So we're kind of depersonalizing it, but still tending to the emotional thing. And then the third one, the breath, it's a quick reset. And again, we're moving from reactivity to regulation, to co-regulation. And we're giving ourselves a chance as a crew to co-regulate very briefly. Okay, I don't want to hammer this too hard. We can do, I don't know, Sonny, what do you think? Should we do this third scenario and then?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, let's do it.
Definitely, I think so. This is really good. I'm going to take that one away, that co-regulation opportunity there. That's a takeaway for me for sure. Really like that.
Okay, I'm going to read this one. We've got a post-game debrief drift. Okay, this is a nod toward our football officials. After a tightly contested game with 2 marginal defensive pass interference calls, the crew comes off the field exhausted. Instead of talking through the pressure points in the game, most of the crew starts packing up, and they're talking about travel, and they're talking about next week's assignments. They just want to move on. Everyone wants to avoid stirring anything up. And the unspoken rule that's happening in this crew is don't bring it up. Don't bring up the close calls unless someone else does it first. They're just kind of waiting. One official wants feedback, hesitates. Another wants to offer feedback, but fears it'll land as criticism. So there's so much uncertainty going on here. And so we've had a pregame, a halftime, and now this is a postgame where people are exhausted. And it was a really tough game together. Options A, before somebody says, before we head out, I'd love a quick take on the DPI late in the fourth. I'm not trying to second guess us. I do want us to learn together. Not trying to second guess. I would like an opportunity for us to learn together before we leave. B, how about a 5-minute review together? One thing we handled well, one thing we tune up next time. So that's kind of similar to our halftime, where you're identifying something we did well, something that's hurting us. So what do we do well and what do we want to tune up for next time? Or C, skip the game talk entirely and jump straight to travel plans and get the hell out of that locker room as quickly as you can.
Nate's got A. Cademan has his hand up.
I think I would personally, I think I'd want to say something, just bring it up, kind of like B, bring it up, let the thought sit in your mind, and then the next day, text, call, Google Meet like this, talk, you can watch the film together. That way you don't still have those super high emotions and you're still amped up from the game. Everything's had time to sit and process with you, so you're a little calmer, but you're still 12 hours after the game, so you can still remember everything that happened. And yeah.
I see, Nate, you had A. I want to hear from you on A, and then afterwards, Danielle. I see Danielle has B. Would love to hear from you too, Danielle. But first, Nate, talk to us a little bit about A.
Okay. I choose A. Because sometimes if we have a late call right? And then we wait a while, like we'll start to like sometimes forget exactly like what was all happening in that one situation. So I think if we do it like after the game, right? And I like this like the last part, like saying not to second guess us, but so we can learn together. Like you're making it a learning opportunity for everyone than just saying you made a bad call and like being negative about it. So like in the same time, you're all trying to learn on, okay, was this call a good call necessarily, or what can we do to work on our mechanics or whatever to improve our game and not just even the call for that game.
Wow. Yeah. That's I'm starting to I've got a follow-up there if we have time, Lauren, but thank you for sharing that, Nate.
Mhm.
Danielle, you had B. Would love to hear some of your thoughts behind that.
Yeah, thanks, Sony. So for me, I think it's really important to have a post game, right? To not have a post game is really not an option, right? Good, bad, or indifferent, right? I think it's just about how you handle it. And scenario B really gives us an opportunity to have a second chance, if you will, right? Sometimes during the midst of the game, other things can be happening, but when you have an opportunity to go back and review, the hope is that if given a second chance, would you do the same thing, right? So asking the question, one thing we handle well versus one thing we'd like to tune up, I think is a great way to give the crew an opportunity to say, hey, you know what, now that we know the ending, like if we had a chance to do it over again, would we do it the same way, right? So that's for me. I like option B because we get an opportunity to kind of replay, and not only that, it gives the crew chief an opportunity to have content for their game report, right? And for me, I'm transparent, right? So I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna put in the game report, and this gives me an opportunity for all of us to have input.
Mm-hmm.
Lauren, I'll pass it back to you. I mean, the question I was going to ask was, I felt like A and B were very similar in certain ways, because A also isn't just kind of like, it's not a bull in a china shop. Like it is like there's some consideration and some empathy there, But I was going to ask like, well, how is A and B? Like, can you differentiate them? And I feel like in the last couple of responses there from Nate and Danielle, I feel like they were kind of able to parse that out and differentiate them a bit more for me. So love the input there, but yeah, Lauren, interested in your thoughts, of course.
Well, I think, one thing that, especially as you're gaining experience, with these conversations in the locker room, sometimes you're going to be the one leading them. Sometimes you're going to be the one sort of folding into them. You're always contributing, even when you're silent. Just remember that. Even silence is a contribution, and it may not be the contribution that the crew needs. But the difference really here, I think, is B, I think, offers a template for something that you can do every single time. Every game, no matter what happened in the game, something difficult, it's run-of-the-mill game. Hey, guys, after every game, I like to do a 5-minute review together, 10-minute review, whatever that looks like, and make it a practice. I'd love to hear one thing, if I were the crew chief, I would want to say one thing that I think we handled well and one thing that I think we would want to tune up. If I'm somebody else on the crew who's not leading the conversation, I would want to ask for feedback. What's one thing that you think that we did well? And then I'd also like to hear one thing that you think we'd want to tune up. So that you can use that format, whatever position you are on the crew. I think A is a good way if you've had a really difficult play. I'm thinking of a play that I had early in my career in the NBA where, oh my gosh, it was a gamer and we missed it. But I didn't feel equipped at that time. Like, how do I bring this up to the crew chief that I can see on the tape review that we're doing together in the locker room afterwards, that we clearly missed this? And so something that I think is important for us is to also be able to practice. What is that to like introduce touching these hard moments together as a crew. And one way to do that is to say, look, I'm not second guessing anything that we've done. Like, nobody likes a Monday morning quarterback. What I am trying to do, though, is learn together around this. So can we look at this play together? Or can we talk about that scenario together? So that offers you a scenario, a way of communicating when you've had a difficult moment together as a crew. Look, I'm not second guessing what we did, but I do want to talk about it. I want to learn from it. The second and B option is a way that you can kind of just build that in as a template. People know it creates some psychological safety for people. They come to expect it from you. You're always going to talk about a couple things we did well, a couple things that we need to tune up. And then, just like Danielle mentioned, really, truly, if you're getting any sort of training, C is not an option. It's just not. The game deserves better. Your crew deserves better. You're not going to learn. You got to have a post game. You got to do it, y'all. And it's part of the tough part of like growing up in this profession, but you got to do it. I'm going to keep moving. I know we're at time, so I'm just going to land this plane here. I do want to say, so yeah, you notice on all these scenarios, nobody's naming what's actually happening. So you come into the locker room and there's a lot of tension. People have questions. There's a need for connection, but the pattern in the crew is avoiding it, is avoidance. That is the pattern. We're going to avoid it. We're not going to talk about it, or I'm going to wait for somebody else to bring it up. Everyone is waiting for someone else to go first. Okay, so a big takeaway across these three scenarios is that what we're seeing isn't about an individual in isolation. It's about the system as a whole. Crews behave like small little family systems, and we develop rules. We develop unspoken rules, roles, rhythms, predictable ways of protecting ourselves when pressure ramps up. And those patterns repeat. They repeat with other crews. They repeat from the locker room onto the field, or onto the pool deck, or onto the court. The patterns that we begin and end with together with our crew show up in our games. So what shows up in pregame shows up in halftime. What shows up in halftime shows up in postgame. So what we're doing, and this is part of, I've just kind of made this decision on the fly. This is going to be probably a 3-part series together about how to interrupt a pattern that's not working for a crew, and how we can sort of insert really small behaviors that ripple through our entire group for the good of our crew. And that is the good news, is that when one person shifts on the crew, so if you ask a curious question, or if you name what's unspoken, or if you take a breath instead of reacting, the entire crew will shift with you. It's hard to believe, but start noticing it with other people. All right, I'm going to land this plane. We have so much more. We've talked about system, like crew system is like a big system that has its own rules, unspoken rules and roles. But what our next session will be together about communication is talking about your individual, like what your individual stances are, communication patterns and stances are when the pressure rises. Because we've talked about the crew system, but we want to know what you're bringing in individually. And so that's really, it's like my favorite part of the work, and it's really exciting. But we'll get to that in the next part of the series. So the last thing I want to ask is, if you think about one thing that you're going to take away that like really landed for you from this session, a takeaway that just feels like it matters for some reason.
I'll start while folks are thinking. I mentioned it a few minutes ago when you talked about scenario 2 and the value of like just saying, hey, why don't we all take a breath together? That thing of co-regulating together in the space is really cool, because I certainly in moments like that will be mindful about doing that myself, but I certainly don't enough like actually engage with people around me to do it with me as well. And so that's really going to stick. I'm looking forward to trying that. See, Malachi said awareness. Danielle, interested to hear from you if you're able to share what's a takeaway from this conversation that you'll be thinking about and applying as you move forward?
Yeah, just kind of the crew perspective, right? Oftentimes we don't have time for the 5 minutes post game, but just to kind of hear the one thing that we did well and the one thing we'd like to work on, right? That piece is like my new post game. So thanks.
Yep, it's a good one too. The tip of the spear. David.
I think a big thing for me was, as a young guy, don't be afraid to speak up. That's the big takeaway I took from today. There's guys who are willing to listen. They're willing to hear your input. And so, I mean, a lot of guys won't, or a lot of guys or girls won't take that extra step and just speak up. It's a big thing in today's world.
I see Nate shaking his head too, as you all are the young guns. Go ahead, Nate.
I agree with Edem is saying. Like I started at 11 years old officiating, and like it was really hard for me to like find places to like hire me and stuff. So I really had to like advocate for myself to get a position somewhere. So I started at my local park district, and now I'm working all over the place by just advocating for myself at such a young age to get a position to keep on working higher and higher.
That's awesome. Like advocating, and which is connecting also with what Caveman talks about, is like having a voice, being willing to take up some space and recognize that, like, look, they need officials and your crew needs you specifically. You're there. I mean, you're there to work the game and they need you.
So Lauren, I know we're a few minutes over. I like your language of planning the plane. I know we need to kind of depart. Any final words for the group here as we start to wind down?
Yeah, I think I think what I would just challenge the group to think about is start noticing patterns, like communication patterns in crews. Is there a crew that you feel like you can show up and contribute more to? And what is it about that crew pattern that makes that possible for you? Yeah. Conversely, is there a crew that you show up on and you're like, man, I feel really shut down. I feel squeezed out. I feel not included, or something happens for me internally and I'm uncomfortable here. Maybe pay attention to a pattern, and you don't have to interrupt it. You don't have to do anything about it. Part of Malachi mentioned awareness right now. Like we are beginning this conversation. We are beginning the process, and like what it is to begin to cultivate awareness for ourselves. And that is a long process, and it's an exciting one, and it's fascinating. But just start paying attention and maybe jot a note or two down, because I'd really be curious to hear some patterns that show up. I think maybe somebody over talks, or somebody won't acknowledge if they've made a mistake, or somebody gives themselves up too much, takes too much responsibility on their crew. I mean, that can happen too. So that's my challenge. Start noticing some patterns, and I'm going to check in. In our next session, I'm going to check in because I'd like to hear what you guys notice.
In our next session, we haven't put on the calendar yet, but we will do a session in December. Every month, we like to do a RefWell session. And we know it gets busy near the end of the year, but we will probably do something in the first couple of weeks of December before it gets too crazy for everyone. So look forward to our next one and be on the lookout. We have the RefWell space in the RefMasters app, and that's a place where Lauren will post resources and sometimes videos as well. And we'll keep the conversation going there. So look forward to seeing you all there in the RefMasters app and the RefWell space. Thank you so much, Lauren, for hosting these. You do such a wonderful job. And for the group that's here in person tonight, thank you so much. Really good questions, great conversation. It isn't easy talking about these topics. Nate, I'm going to go to you. I know you know how to send us off, Nate,
Mm.
and Cademan sent us off earlier today during our baseball session. So go for it.
All right. Well, I just want to say thank you for everyone who was here today. You guys keep on working. Without you guys being here, we can't learn and grow as officials. So that's all I wanted to say. So let's run the game.
Mm. Run the game. Thanks, Nate.
Run it. Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Thanks,
y'all.
Roy.